Hi there. I figured since I recently decided to do some video game content, one thing I've never done is review a video game. And not really one for reviewing things that are brand new, because I don't like being forced to rush out a review just to get clicks. I like to do things thoroughly. I like to make sure I've watched it or played it properly. And so I'm going to be reviewing a game called Blair Witch. Most of you are probably familiar with the Blair Witch franchise, so I'm not going to give you a history about it. It's a pretty big phenomenon at the time that it came out, so I really don't feel the need to recap it. But there is a game for the Blair Witch that came out fairly recently, and I recently played through it on my stream live. It's a good game. It is a good game. Let's start with the graphics, shall we? I couldn't run the game on full settings because my graphics card was not quite good enough. But even on medium settings, the graphics were pretty good and impressive. They were very atmospheric and spooky. The lighting was great, and it did a great job of manipulating our primal fears, which is fear of the dark, fear of being alone, and fear of the unknown. It did that quite a lot throughout the game. An impressive way to create atmosphere. As for sound, the sound Nope, not coming down there, bullet. Oh, whoa! Bullet! Well, the sound was done binaural. I think that's the word. Is it binaural? The sound was binaural. So I played it with headphones on so that I could experience it properly. And again, the sound did a superb job. There was many times when I could hear whisperings or movement. Like twigs snapping in the forest, and it felt like it was coming from way over there or way over there. I think at one point during my stream, I actually heard so many noises on the game that I thought there was somebody in my house, and I had to turn around to look and check that there was nobody there. Stupid, I know, but that's the effect that good sound design can have on a game. So throughout the entire game, the sound was great as well. So what about gameplay? Well, the game itself is pretty much a first-person detective adventure game, if you will, in a horror theme. You wander around the Blair Witch forest. I think, what's it called? Black Hills Forest? I think it is. You wander around there, playing as your character whose tragic past is hinted at. I'll get on that in a second. And you got to find clues to try and find a child that's been lost in the woods, presumably kidnapped by the Blair Witch. There was a game mechanic which I thought was interesting, which I've never seen used before. In the game, you get given a video camera and you find tapes every now and then which have clues in them. Now, the video camera acts as a way to rewind time. So you might see a door that's closed, for example, and if you point your video camera at the door and play a tape which shows the door being open and rewind it, then the door becomes open because that's what it is in the tape. It's an interesting mechanic and provides something a bit different to your sleuthing anyway. You know, most of the time you just find clues, piece things together, but the use of the camera was a good and interesting mechanic. One thing that I found that could have been done better is you wander around with a dog called Bullet. The dog acts as a way to stop you from feeling like you're on your own, because the whole game is played almost exclusively on your own. You never meet any other characters. You hear from them from time to time on the radio, but you never meet them, apart from, you know, right near the very start. So the dog acts as your only companion, and I think the reason they did that is so that you've got times when you've got someone with you, which helps to ground you and make you feel a bit less alone. But then there's times when you don't have the dog, and obviously you feel a bit less stable in those situations, and your character actually starts to feel unstable when the dog isn't around. He starts to have psychotic breaks if you wander too far from the dog, which is good and interesting, and I'm glad they did that. But it wasn't utilised quite as well as I would have hoped that it was. For an example of how better to use the idea of psychosis in a game, if you look at the game Eternal Darkness, which I think came out on the GameCube, it's not a great game, but it does do a great job of confusing and manipulating you by having your character have induced psychotic breaks. That would have been better in this game, I think. It was a bit underused in this game, and the dog in general was underused. After about the first third of the game, the dog really became useless. It never did anything apart from keep me company. So it would have been nice to have had more things for the dog to do and to make your teamwork a bit better with the dog. That being said, I didn't dislike the gameplay at all. I'm really nitpicking when I pick at those things. Aside from those two things, there's nothing wrong with the gameplay, and it's hugely enjoyable from start to finish. There's plenty of occasions when the puzzles are quite tricky and do require you to think about it a little bit. It took a while for me to get used to the camera mechanic, but once I did, it became an invaluable tool. I think the gameplay does have branching endings. I think you can get different endings, because when I played through it, it told me that my dog survived, that the kid that I was supposed to be there to find didn't, and that I became the terror of the woods or something to that effect. So I do think that there are different endings that you can get, and there are different ways to play. That's just the ending that I got. So it's got a good replay factor as well. I'm going to talk about the story a little bit, because primarily it's a story-driven game. You know, most of the things that you do are to push the narrative forward and to unravel the story. The story itself starts off really well and becomes something that's pretty interesting, and I was really, really compelled to find out what the backstory for my character was, what the mystery was that they were trying to solve, the mythology behind the Blair Witch. But somewhere about 2/3 of the way through, it kind of abandons all that stuff and becomes a bit more of a generic roam and scare game. When I say roam and scare, I mean it's a game where you pretty much just roam around and then it scares you every now and then. So I do think that the story was lacking a little bit in the final third. The last act of the story could have done with more work. That brings me on to the scares. Is the game scary? Because ultimately when you're playing a horror game, that's the question you want answering. Is the game scary? I like trivia.
What have you done, Alice?
What?
Oh, looks like we have a winner. It's someone who knows the answer all too well. Congratulations. Your prize is on its way.
I don't want my prize! I don't want the prize! Hey, what the fuck? Bullet, you need get the whatever the hell is attacking me, go get it! No, don't run away and leave me! And away we go. Ah! You fuck! That wasn't funny. Ah! Fuck! What would you think? It did make me jump a few times. I mean, jump scares are cheap and easy anyway. Anyone can give you a jump scare, but what is hard to do is to generate a genuine atmosphere of fear. And this game does that on quite a few occasions. You know, there's a couple of times when I didn't know what I was doing and things were happening that I wasn't sure about, and it helped to create a very strong sense of uneasiness in my gameplay. Which is good. That's exactly what you want from a horror game. You want to feel uneasy at all times, and this game did that. The only time when I think it failed to do that was in the final section of the game, which went on for a bit too long, and because it went on for so long, I became accustomed to the atmosphere that it generated. When at first it was a very scary atmosphere, very intimidating, but because I was in it for so long, I just became accustomed to it, and it wasn't scary anymore. So I think that's one area that could have been improved. But aside from that, it does a good job with the story, with the scares and the atmosphere of the game. Would I recommend you play and buy this game? Yes, I would absolutely recommend you play and buy this game. It's a great game. I really enjoy playing through it. And if you're interested in finding out more about the game, you want to see more of the game, I am going to upload my live streams of the game so that you can watch me play through it if you really want to know what the game is like, or maybe you just want to follow the story and see what happens. It's an intriguing story to begin with, so it's worth checking out. That's it. That's my first game review. I don't know if it's good or not, so if you thought the review was a good review, then press thumbs up on the thumbs up button. If you thought it was a shit review, then give me a thumbs down and tell me why it was shit. I want to know, because I've never reviewed games before, so I don't know how good this review is. The one thing I will say is that I'm never going to review something that I haven't played extensively. Just like I do with movies, you know, you can see from my live stream, I played this game start to finish. So there's no shilling here. I'm not being paid to promote the game. I'm not trying to race out and get clicks. I'm literally trying to recommend something to you that I think is worthwhile. and you can see that I did that by playing it extensively. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next video.